When
Right.
Prevost came out, this Cardinal Prevost was the head of the Congregation for Bishop. They're really hoping for a sign, and that sign will be the restoration of Bishop Strickland. And as the head of the Congregation for Bishops, almost at the same time, just slightly after, Cardinal McClane was given the Archdiocese of Washington, the most prestigious diocese in the United States. But there are signs of hope. So he chose the name Leo XIV. A lot of people say that's a signal. Well, if you know Leo XIII, that is a big signal. He also did something very interesting. He wore the... There are also signs of hope in what he did. Even on the loggia, there was something internal, and that was really beautiful. If you watch closely, when he is...
By the way, my name is Joe McClane. I host a radio program called A Catholic Take, where we look at the world through a Catholic lens. I'd love for you to hang out with us. If you like it, give it a thumbs up and let us know what you think in the comments below. We've got big problems, serious issues in Holy Mother Church. And joining us now from LifeSite News is John Henry Westen from Rome. John Henry, good morning to you. Thank you for your time.
Joe, so good to be with you. We are right here in front of St. Peter's, where just this morning, the new Holy Father, Pope Leo XIV, celebrated his first Mass. Just amazing. It was actually very, very beautiful. One of the first things you notice, he actually wore black shoes, which is funny because from the loggia right off the bat, you had beautiful vestments, Latin. I was really, really quite something.
What was your reaction to the white smoke? Because when I was watching it live, I was doing a live stream at the time, and I thought, there's no way we're going to get a pope. I've been telling everybody, May 9th, May 9th, May 9th. Was I ever wrong? I could not see the possibility of getting it so quickly. What did you think?
A lot of people had the same idea, Joe. When I got here, after just being with you, people too were saying May 9th. And the calculus for that was, we don't want it too short, because then they're scared of who's going to come in. If it went too long, a massive compromise candidate. So the sweet spot was actually the night of May 9th, just as you had predicted. What we got was totally different, but we had a telegraph. It was really weird. Cardinal Ray, who said the Mass for the opening of the Conclave, actually, very controversially, he was caught on a hot mic. He told that to Parolin twice. He told him, best wishes, best wishes. And so everybody thought it was going to be Parolin. And then he also said yesterday morning, while he was in Pompeii, at Our Lady of Pompeii, he said, I'm going back to Rome because I'm hoping to see the white smoke. So the newspapers here were going, whoa, what does Ray know? And they were predicting Parolin for that reason. When Prevost came out, most people, first of all, when you're here, the crush is impossible. When the white smoke happens, people start to flood in from nowhere. And it was already crowded, but the flood just got nuts.
Wow.
And the weird thing is, remember during the conclave, they actually jammed the signals. So you have no internet, and it's really weird. But the crush is incredible. People were, you've been to Rome before, Joe, all the way down, Via della Conciliazione, the whole road, all the way to the very back, right to the Tiber, basically. It's filled with people, all the way, both sides. And then all the streets leading up, Spirito and Sasio, all the way down to this side over here where the sisters are, the Sisters of Life, and all the way down this. It's impossible. It's incredible. So that's what we experienced. In terms of what was expected and what came out, that was... we did get a heads up. If you recall, when we were together, actually, we got the notice, that the nod that it was going to be Prevost. And that was very interesting. And of course, for me, especially for LifeSite, for Americans who are faithful, particularly those in Tyler, Texas, that is really scary. Because remember, this Cardinal Prevost was the head of the Congregation for Bishops. And as the head of the Congregation for Bishops, he is the one who came and got rid of Bishop Strickland from Tyler. Much to, not only the shock and horror, but it ripped the hearts out of the children, the spiritual children he had there in the diocese. Remember, 700 families moved to that diocese. All sorts of religious orders, all sorts of priests moved there. They had one of the highest rates of seminarians. The diocese was in healthy order. There was no reason for it other than Pope Francis didn't like him. And so Bishop Strickland was removed. And almost at the same time, just slightly after, Cardinal McElroy was given the Archdiocese of Washington, the most prestigious diocese in the United States, and it's handed to what everybody knows as an arch-heretic. So this is, it was huge to see him come out, but there are signs of hope. So he chose the name Leo XIV. A lot of people say that's a signal. Well, if you know Leo XIII, that is a big signal. He also did something very interesting. He wore the traditional garments. Remember, when Pope Francis came out, he did not do that. Now, I already noted at the top of our call that he actually didn't wear the red shoes, which was characteristic, of course, of all popes in the past, especially John Paul as well. But what he did do is he wore the normal vestments, both on the loggia and also at the Mass. And also on the loggia, he spoke in Latin. Now, what was really interesting is that this American Pope said not a word of English from the loggia. In fact, the first English we hear from him as Pope, officially anyway, is at this first Mass. He begins the first few seconds of his homily in English. And boy, it's the first time you have a Pope speaking English in a way that everybody can understand it. And obviously it's American English. So it was quite something to see. There are also signs of hope in what he did, even on the loggia. And it wasn't just the vestments or the prayers in Latin, because those are external features. There was something internal, and that was really beautiful. If you watch closely, when he is praying in Latin or in Italian, he said both, he bows at the name of Jesus, which is a very traditional, pious practice. Catholics all used to bow at the name of Jesus. It says in the scriptures, every knee shall bow and every head bend at the name of the Lord Jesus. And so he did that. And of course, that's a very pious practice. So that's a signal in and of itself. Then, also on the loggia, when he gave the first blessing in Latin, by the way, but he started to tear up. You could see it. It was very emotional for him. From James Martin. If you go check out his Twitter, he's there in all his glory saying how wonderful this is. In fact, there's lots to worry about too, for sure. Absolutely. But remember, the grace of office can change a man. The famous case of Pius IX, right? I mean, he came in a liberal, and it wasn't right away. Pius IX came in, was made the Holy Father, and then the world went insane, and that's what really changed him. So, who knows? Are we going to be experiencing something that will move the new Holy Father to a position where you come back to the simple faithful? And that's really what I think Americans are looking for. The American faithful, not the vast majority of Americans, but those faithful Americans, that very small in number group that are loyal to the church and have been, that have their hearts, very much like the underground church in China, not the official church, the underground church, persecuted, but they're really hoping for a sign. And that sign for all of America will be the restoration of Bishop Strickland. It would be a beautiful gesture. And that's what this is about. The first 2 days are gestures. The choosing of the name, the wearing of the vestments, the saying prayers in Latin, the bow of the head, those are all gestures. And they're sincere, but they're also devices of communication. And we need that in the restoration of Bishop Strickland like nothing else, because the faith was ripped out from those faithful. Those children were stripped of a father. And Joe, get this. Today at Mass, in the regular Mass, if you go to the Novus Ordo, the reading is on the conversion of St. Paul. And it's all about how Ananias was going over to heal him. And he was like, Lord, don't you know this guy's been like brutal with us? Are you sure you want me to go? Jesus sends him anyway. If you remember in Acts, what did they say? They said Saul was pulling people, dragging them out of their homes. It's true. Prevost was party to the dragging of Strickland out of his home diocese of Tyler, away from his spiritual children.
Yeah.
Where now he has the power to restore that. He has the power to undo what everybody will say. Well, he had to do it because, he was just the head of the congregation, but the Pope wanted it. What he's supposed to do. But now he has a chance to undo that damage. And it was real damage. And I think a lot of the cardinals have talked about healing in the church. Well, there's a wide rift in the church. And it's not just about the traditional Latin Mass, because that's one of the things. And that's one of the things we're hearing stuff about that this Pope Leo XIV might, in fact, do something about. Michael Matt, I just spoke with him recently. He's rather encouraged. They're in a different place. That's their concern. There's lots of concerns, though, for lots of people. One of the things that we have to do is heal from the last 12 years, and that rift has to be healed again.
I'm going to be up against a break here in just a couple of minutes, but you and I talked 1 week ago, prior to the conclave starting. It was just last Friday, and something you said was your worst nightmare was a guy steps out who just wants to move forward. All I want to do is move forward. No more crazy from the past 12 years, but guys, we're just moving forward. Is that still a concern at this point? Are we just going to move forward now, all on the same team, but just moving forward?
Yes, it's a massive concern, obviously. And that's when you bring in the calculus of Father James Martin, a cheerleader like crazy. Are we going to go forward with a church that has a new understanding and teaching on homosexuality, which can't happen? If we do, we're no longer the Catholic Church. And that is, to me, the greatest danger. If the Francis errors are solidified in a new pope who goes forward with the same stuff, we're in schism. And it's not that the faithful leave, it's that the leadership seems to go off. And we will wait for a faithful cardinal or bishop or something to proclaim the truth. But we were lacking in that. For the last 12 years, we've had heresy after heresy after heresy with virtual silence. Yes, we had like the dubia cardinals and stuff, but really, it was mostly silence. That can't continue.
Because you want more, and I want to give it to you. I'm rolling out a brand new membership program for the insiders of this channel. Join today. There's something for everyone. And because you could help me fund the next documentary film, the next book project, audio drama, audio narrations, and other projects that I have been dreaming to work on, but simply don't have the resources to accomplish. You and I together can do amazing things. You want more, and I want to give it to you. I saw you put out a little video that blew my mind. At St. Mary Major Basilica, where Pope Francis is buried, not far away from Pope St. Pius V, by the way, there was a traditional Latin Mass. Tell me about this.
There was. So this is really incredible and very much the God of surprises. So I was talking to the local faithful inside the Basilica. Now, this is the Basilica of Mary Major, one of the major basilicas of Rome 7. And the traditional Latin Mass has been restricted here. This was the Institute for Christ the King had arranged for this pilgrimage, which included the Latin Mass at Mary Major. So it was actually approved while Francis was probably convalescing months ago already. And so there is a movement, even while Francis was alive but not functioning. There was already some movement in the church toward openness to the traditional Latin Mass. And the place was packed out. I mean, really packed out.
Wow.
And so we went there. We went for the Mass. It was a high Mass, obviously. But it was not only a high Mass. They had a cardinal there whom I didn't know. He looked extremely old, and I'm talking over 97. And they looked like all their seminaries. There were hundreds of seminarians. And the faithful were there, as I said, in droves, packed out the basilica. And it was beautiful because as we were leaving, I'm talking to this local, and he says, "Yeah, it's been so long here." And I said, "Isn't that funny?" Right? And it was like, basically, Pope Francis is asked to be buried there, especially because he went to one of the images of Our Lady often that is in that church. So he went there often. And he has to be buried there. And then right after his burial comes the Latin Mass right over top of him, you might say.
Isn't that something?
It is something. And it is like a divine sense of humor to put his stamp on the Mass and to say, no. And I don't know if there could be all sorts of jokes made, but you don't want to joke about this because it is serious. that, Francis did the unthinkable when it came to the Latin Mass. And so we have to pray for the repose of his soul, because we don't know that what led him to do it. You're only guilty of mortal sin when it's grave, and that's very grave. And when you act knowingly. And did he act knowingly? I don't know. We can't answer that question. That's up to the good Lord. And so
Can I ask
waiting.
you a question about Pope Francis for a second in his passing? One of the things that I have been looking for, but I've never seen the Vatican publish this, and you might know better than me. Did the Vatican ever clarify whether or not Pope Francis received last rites prior to going into a coma and having the stroke going into the coma and dying of a heart attack? I mean, did he receive the apostolic pardon?
They didn't say that, but he did receive last rites. So,
Okay.
yeah, no, they didn't say about the apostolic pardon. There is one interesting thing, though, I have to say, that's odd. When you go to the tombstone of Francis, it's missing the normal PP, the Pro Pontifice, with the nomenclature for the Pope. So it only says Francis. That's weird.
That is
So I don't know what
interesting.
that's all about, but that's just what is at Mary Major now if you go there.
Francis being Francis to the bitter end, I guess. You know,
Who knows?
I
One
don't know what
rejecting
else
the
to-
title Vicar of Christ
right,
and so on. But yeah.
right. So I guess one thing I was talking about with Dr. Stein in the last segment was with Leo XIV as a canonist, as a canon lawyer, he really is probably a guy who's going to be a lot more precise in his language, a lot more precise in his conversation, probably not going to have off-the-cuff statements quite as often. He'll have thought them through, I'm supposing. Do you think that will be the case?
Well, 100%. He's an American. Americans are media savvy in our sense of media savvy like no one else. Different cultures have different ways of handling media. With Francis, everybody said he was a Peronist. And so they had these weird methods of communication with, all sorts of leaked things. And when Francis first came in, I went to the Vatican because we were not yet persona non grata like we are now. And I spoke with a lot of the individuals who knew him, even those from Argentina. And I don't know if you remember, right in the beginning, there was this really weird exchange where he met with some religious leaders and he had said, someone had prayed a rosary for him, and he said, a bouquet of rosaries. And he said, oh, what's with all this counting? I hate this counting. Why do they have to count? And I was like, that's a fake interview. And we never published on it right away because that was the famous interview where he talked about a gay lobby in the Vatican. And I said,
wow.
nope, that can't be real because no pope would ever bash the rosary. Well, it turns out it was real. And I learned that right in that first week that you would be seeing these weird interviews that'll come out unofficially, but they'll be real. Sure enough, over a dozen years, we've learned that the hard way.
Did you like that video? It's okay. You can admit it. It's perfectly fine. Hey, we cover the big stories of our day, from inside the church to outside the church to all points in between, and we do it from a Catholic perspective. It's called A Catholic Take. It's a radio program Monday through Friday. We live stream it right here on this channel, by the way, so make sure to subscribe, like, and share. We would be very grateful to you. And don't forget, you're going to want to watch this video right here because you don't want to miss anything.